Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Today, I'm going to be talking about managing exam stress. First of all, I'd love to thank the great partnership that exists between CPA Western School of Business, CPA Ontario, and CPA Atlantic School of Business. They've ensured that the resources and time were put aside to ensure that you had access to this valuable information. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to your region or your province. I've included their emails here. So this webinar is the first webinar in our CFE support series. My name is Debbie Bayless. We feel, based on feedback from previous candidates, it is extremely important that we talk about stress management as soon as possible. Perhaps you're already feeling a little bit of anxiety as you're preparing to write CFE. So as a result, our objectives are to not only identify the sources of exam stress, but to provide you with some effective strategies, in particular, the day of the exam. Plus, I'm also going to provide you with some additional resources that I'm confident you will find helpful. I love this quote. The CFE is a marathon, not a sprint. So in order to successfully complete a marathon, you must maintain your focus, maintain that stamina. So in other words, when you're writing CFE, you certainly don't want to go in being exhausted. You want to make sure that when you write CFE, you're at your peak performance. As a result, it is extremely important that you practice self-care and stress management. Effectively managing your stress is a key success factor in passing CFE. I want to demonstrate and give you an example of the importance of self-care. And this is based on my experience as an exam supervisor. A few years ago, during a day 2 exam, a candidate asked if they could speak to me. I know she looked distraught. We went outside and she told me that she was exhausted. The 2 weeks before she wrote the exam, she had very little sleep. She couldn't concentrate. She said, I can't complete day 2. I convinced her to go back and said, it's a good experience, no matter the outcome, go back and finish day 2. Unfortunately, she did not pass CFE. But there's silver lining to this story. Next year, she practiced self-care. She came in writing that exam. She was confident. She was well rested. She was well prepared. And yes, she passed CFE. So let's talk about the various sources of exam stress. And I'm going to go into greater detail shortly. Procrastination, regrets, imbalance between work and studies, not prioritizing the course material, the lack of a proper workspace, not enough sleep, unhealthy eating, and not taking enough breaks. So let's look at each of these. Inaction causes stress. So what does that mean? In other words, sometimes when you look at the big picture, it looks like it's not possible. It's unsurmountable. The best thing to do is to take what you need to do and break it into smaller pieces. Because if you think it's not possible, what happens is candidates don't do anything or very little. So break it into smaller pieces. If you haven't already, it's important that you create a study guide and a study schedule. If you're enrolled in Capstone 2, They provide you with a sample study schedule. And in that schedule, you need time to complete the practice cases, to debrief them. That's an important component of your learning and refreshing that technical skills, to document your key learnings, to then not only identify your areas of development, but to spend time studying and practicing them. Also, when you're creating that schedule, make sure that you include your very big personal and work commitments. Make sure that you allocate time, reasonable time for tasks. So to allocate, say, an hour to review the Income Tax Act, that's probably not an appropriate time amount. So the imbalance between work and studies. So the first comment says working and studying at the same time can be exhausting. I'd like to change that word can. It is exhausting at times. I know, I've been there. I'm sure that you have also. It's important to sit down with your manager. Let him or her know. Talk about what your work commitments are between now and when you write CFE. Talk about, is there an opportunity? Let them know what your commitments, what it needs to be to set yourself up for success when you go to write CFE. Together, come up with a strategy that allows you to be able to effectively meet your work commitments and also your study commitments. Here are some great tips on how to balance your load. So determine the number of hours that you have available to study, study and practice. Now, some people have more time off than others. It's not about the amount of time that you have as much as what are you going to do with that time? Think about, do you have time in the morning? Is that when you work well? Do you have time over lunch where you can find a quiet area to do some work? What about early evenings? What about on the weekends? Define your major priorities. What are the key areas and skills that you need to spend time on? You have a limited time. You're only human. There's only so many hours in a day. I'm going to talk about this in much greater detail when I talk about the competency map and how to determine and prioritize your time. Keep all the relevant parties well informed. So we've talked about your work. Also, let your significant others, your family and friends know. Between now and when you write CFE, a lot of your time is going to be dedicated to preparing to write CFE. Let your loved ones know so that they can support you in this endeavor. Recognize the need for well-being. Be on the lookout for any signs of burnout. Things like having difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, concentrating, becoming increasingly irritable. If you're starting to see these things happen, that's your body saying you need to rest. I know it seems counterintuitive, but if you're experiencing signs of anxiety, carefully consider, can I take this evening off? Can I take a day off where I'm not studying so that I can have some fun, relax? Because what will happen is if you do that, you're going to come back refreshed. You're going to be more efficient and effective when it comes to your studying and your practicing of those practice cases. So the lack of a proper workspace. Now, we all have our own personal work styles. We have our own personal learning styles and also the environments in which we work best. Some of us need everything all around us, okay? We need to be in an area that's quite quiet. Others have been able to work very effectively in coffee shops as long as it's not too noisy. So figure out what's going to work best for you. Make sure, if you can, create kind of a permanent place in your home or in your apartment so that you don't have to constantly be setting up, and taking down all of your work. Make sure that you have the proper lighting, that you have a comfortable seat with great back support. Not enough sleep. Some of us, and I've been known to do this, burn the candle at both ends. Now, what that means is getting up very early in the morning and going to bed very late at night. And in fact, I've been known to be able to do pretty good short term with very little sleep. But remember, that only works short term. And you certainly do not want to be writing CFE when you're exhausted, because this will have a negative impact on your ability to pass. So, according to a study at Harvard Medical School Health Sleep Division, sleep optimizes our focus, helps with memory and our ability to recall information. These are all important things that we want to be at the forefront. That is going to ensure that you are at peak performance when you write CFE. So, how do you get a good night's sleep? Here's some fundamental best practices. Try and go to sleep and get up at the same time every day. That's going to set your internal clock. Think about, when are you going to be writing CFE? What time do you need to get up to have a good breakfast, to get where you're going, so that when you go and sit down to write that exam, your mind is at peak performance? That's the time you should start getting up now. And when I talk about going to bed and getting up at the same time, that's every day, including the weekends. Now, sometimes we like to stay up later on the weekends, but still get up the same time. We've got to set that internal clock so we make sure that our brain is fully functioning when we go to write CFE. So if you need a nap in the afternoon, that's okay. Keep those electronic devices out of your bedroom. Your laptops, your tablets, your telephone. That really negatively impacts your ability to have a good sleep. Wind down before you go to bed. Take some time and do something, turn off the TV, put that phone away, maybe read, listen to calming music, listen to a soothing podcast. Give your mind an opportunity to stop. Unfortunately, this is a bad habit I have, and I'm sure some of you have done the same thing. You work right up until you go to bed. And then what happens is you go to bed and your mind's racing. Your mind is still going. And then you can't get to sleep. And then you're conscious of the time that you need to get to sleep. So it's very important that winding down before you go to sleep is critical. Unhealthy eating. If you're consuming nothing but coffee, energy drinks, and junk food, you're likely contributing to your stress levels. Healthy eating, it has a positive impact on our focus and our memory. So it's worthwhile investing time to prepare those healthy meals. Prepare them ahead of time. Have them in the freezer. You know you're going to be busy. Haul them out instead of picking up the phone, an app, and sending out for unhealthy food. Now, I recognize that some of the advice I'm giving you is easier said than done. But remember, it's given in this. spirit of ensuring that you are at your peak performance when you write. Not having enough breaks. Lots of times we just feel if we can just keep plowing through. If you're spending hours and hours reading materials, your brain and your eyes need a rest. Every 60 minutes to 75 minutes, you should stand up, do something, extract, take yourself away from that situation, whether it's go for a walk around the block, listen to music, do something. So again, you come back refreshed and energized. There are some other great anxiety reducing strategies. The most important thing, especially when you're writing CFE, is to make sure that you're well prepared. Practice those cases in exam-like conditions. So what that means, if the practice case is 75 minutes, complete your response in 75 minutes. Use your computer screen only and the computer keyboard. That's what you're going to have when you write the exam, that small monitor. Make sure that if you're writing day 1 or day 2, that you write it in one sitting within the time frame that you're given, not over 2 days. I hate to say this, but use the paper copies of the case because that's what you're going to have when you write your exam. And the reason I hate to say it is because it does kill trees. Another important anxiety reducing strategy is banishing those negative thoughts. Starts creeping in and you start, that thought of, you can't do it. I can't do this. I don't know what to do. I can't do this. Change that thought. Instead, tell yourself, I can do this. I know what I'm doing. I can do this. What we tell ourselves, we believe. So turn that negative thought into a positive. And that, when you start telling yourself that you can do this, it reduces your stress. Take deep breaths. This is a wonderful technique and it's so easy to do. Some great examples of when to take a deep breath is when, after you finish created an outline for your day 1, take a deep breath. When you've completed your response for a very difficult assessment opportunity, take a deep breath. When you've finished one of your 3 to 4 day 3 cases, take a deep breath. Avoid that perfectionist trap. Your response does not need to be perfect to pass CFE. I want to say that again. Your response does not need to be perfect to pass CFE. The markers are looking for a reasonable response. The goal is to complete all of the assessment opportunities to the best of your ability within the time frame that you're given. That's important. Determine when and where you're going to be writing the exam. Find out the location. If you've never been there, if you're going to drive, do a dry run. Get there. Find out where the parking is. What does the facility look like? Because that's going to reduce your stress level. So I talked about the number 1 strategy is about ensuring that you're prepared. Let's talk about how do you prioritize the course material. I want to remind everybody that the CPA competency map, that is your syllabus. Every item that is there is testable. The good news is CPA Canada has already prioritized the material for you. How have they done that? By assigning proficiency levels. So proficiency level A is the most important, then B, then C. So concentrate when you're prioritizing, start with A's first. Those are the ones that you need to know the most and the best, and then work your way down. So here is an example of what's testable when it comes to accounting and assurance standards. And the proficiency level difference, whether you're being tested at the core level, which is day 3, or if you're tested at your elective level. So again, if your role is specialized in audit and assurance, your proficiency level at the core level may be a B, but if you're writing the role of audit and assurance, it most likely is an A. So again, there is a difference between your role, there's higher expectations from a proficiency level than if you're writing from a core perspective. If you're wondering and thinking, gee, I'd like some more information about what Debbie's talking about, please know that the upcoming CFE support webinar, it's called Understanding the CFE, that's on April the 1st. And I'm going to go into great detail on how CFE is marked and the different proficiency levels and the different requirements to pass level 1 versus 2 versus 3 versus 4. So please make sure that you register for that particular webinar. So the great news is you have access to a competency map tool. The CPA competency map, there's actually 2 PDF files, and there's an actual Excel spreadsheet. And the great news about Excel is you can sort it. So this information is you can access it through D2L, whether it is Introduction to Capstone 2 and CFE, or if you're enrolled in Capstone 2, it's under the module resources. So normally what happens is, and it's also available through CPA Canada's website. So I've included the link here and I've made sure that it works. When it connects you to the page and at the kind of in the middle of the page, you're going to find the PDFs. Keep scrolling all the way down until you see the Excel spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide you with a demonstration on how to sort this Excel tool. So let me bring up the tool. Okay, so this is what the tool looks like. And if you notice, it has each of the competencies: financial reporting, strategy governance, management accounting, audit insurance, finance, and tax. My recommendation is to sort and create three separate files to start with. One file for financial reporting, one for management accounting, and one for your role. And the reason I'm saying that is because when you look at historically, more of your assessment opportunities have been around financial reporting, management accounting, and of course, your role. Now, please, that does not mean that you neglect the other competencies. But let's start with this. So let's create this specific file for financial reporting. So what I'm going to do is let's get rid of what we don't need. So let's delete those rows. Now let's expand these areas. There's lots of information here, but some of it you don't need. So let's get rid of what were the requirements and the outcome from an entry perspective. Okay, so we're going to delete those columns. We're going to keep the core information. we're going to delete the elective information. So we delete that. But we are going to keep the knowledge list. I find the knowledge list extremely helpful because it outlines specific tasks that you need to be able to do. So if you notice here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up and I'm going to filter the tabs. So now I'm able to sort. So let's take select all and let's sort by level A first. There are all my level A's. The great news is you have the ability to add an additional role because you can go through this list and identify the areas that you need to focus on. So again, you start with A and then you work your way from there. So that's an example of how you can turn this tool into a sortable one for your financial reporting. Now let's look at doing the same thing, but for your role. So again, we'll start with, so in this capacity, I'm going to use the example of if you're specializing in your role for performance management. So I'm going to delete financial reporting and I'm going to keep strategy and governance because that's what I need. Delete. I'm going to expand that section. Okay, so let's get rid of, I no longer need, I know if it's my role, I'm going to be tested at the proficiency level for the elective. So I'm going to get rid of the entry information. I don't need that. I'm going to get rid of the core information. I don't need that. So now what I'm going to do is the elective, if you see, they're all here, whether it's PM, finance, assurance, or tax. So what I need to first do is I need to run the filter, okay? You need to run the filter first so that you can sort it. You can then delete because I'm only going to focus on what I need for PM. That's my role. So now I can delete those rows, those columns, sorry, that I don't need. So delete. And now I can sort. What are the level A's? And then I could sort from B and so on. So here I'm giving you a very concrete example of how you can take this competency map tool and sort it so that you can prioritize where you should spend your time. And I want to caution you, make sure that you're spending your time in the areas that you're uncomfortable with. It tends to be human nature that we spend time on things that we're already good at. No, spend the time on areas that you're having a challenge with. So let me bring back up the slides. And what I've done for you, again, I've included the instructions here. So after the recording, and if you're thinking, gee, I'm having a hard time sorting it, you can go back to the recording. You'll find it under your D2L where you found the registration. And here I have the instructions of how to create sortable Excel files for you. So I wanted to share with you some comments from the Board of Examiners when it came to the candidates' technical abilities. And this was based on the recent Board of Examiners report from May 2024. So they've been noting that there's been a decline of technical abilities, and they've been seeing this over the past CFEs, and it appears that what's happening is candidates are generally avoiding the more complex topics. So this reinforces the importance of starting with proficiency level A because they tend to be more complex. The Board of Examiners is encouraging candidates to be balanced in their study and to ensure that they have a sufficient level of technical knowledge in all competency areas. The reason I said it's important to create one for financial reporting and management accounting and your role is I find candidates think for level 2, in order to pass level 2 for CFE, you need to either pass financial reporting or management accounting. Candidates have a preference lots of times. They're more comfortable with one or the other. And so therefore, they spend very limited time on the one they aren't comfortable with. This is not an effective strategy. In order to pass the other, the most important level, level 1, when it comes to passing CFE. Again, I am going to provide you with much more detail. Come to that webinar for understanding the CFE. So this is reinforcing. It's important that you're comfortable in all technical areas. When it comes to the day 2 role, the Board of Examiners are noting that more candidates are uncomfortable with their chosen role. They're emphasizing that the expectations, as I said, is different. You're being tested at the elective proficiency level. So make sure that you're choosing the most appropriate role for you. So here's some important questions to ask yourself. If you were part of the professional education program, did you marginally pass that exam for the role that you've chosen? If you have, statistic-wise, it shows that that has a very negative impact in your ability to pass. Is this an area that you actually work in, that you have experience? Because if you don't, it makes it more difficult. If you're watching this video and it's the end of March or it's early April, ask yourself these tough questions. Reach out to your region or your province. Perhaps you want to change your role. If it's early April, there's a good chance that that's a viable option. Familiarize yourself with the 2 key resources. The resources that you have available to you, the only resources, is the CPA handbook and the income tax collection. Make sure that you're comfortable, that you can, find that information quickly. It's going to reduce your stress and it's going to reduce the time needed to get to the information you need. What they said, the Board of Examiners has also said that one area where there's lack of technical knowledge was evidenced by the assessment opportunities that required candidates to use the handbook. So in other words, they may have been, remember, anything identified in the competency map is testable. And so there could be a financial reporting issue that you're not comfortable with. So save that time to be able to go into the handbook, but you have to be comfortable with the handbook. For those of you who've been in the professional education program, I'm hoping you're very comfortable with Surpass. If this is the first time using this software, make sure that you go through the resources that are available to you, especially the videos when it comes to Word and Excel and the tips and tricks document. Because the system that you see, it's a fake, I use the word fake, it's a fake version of Word and Excel. So there's certain functions that cannot be performed. Make sure that you're aware of that. So let's talk about case writing again. I want to reinforce the importance of practicing writing those cases in the designated time frame. Use your laptop, that one screen. Right now I'm looking around and I've got large screens, I've got my external keyboard. You're going to have a laptop screen. So make sure that you're writing your cases in exam-like conditions. When it comes to the tips and tricks, let me reinforce some things. So if you're going to go and copy large amounts of information from the handbook, what that's going to do is, again, the system isn't going to be able to handle that. You go and paste it into Word, what will happen is it'll most likely kick you out. We can get you back in very quickly. That's not a problem. But even copying vast amounts of information is not an effective strategy when it comes to your analysis of the financial reporting issues. So again, on your path to competent, I'm going to talk about how do you ensure that your response is, addresses the user's needs. Don't cut and paste. And the reason I say that is the good news is Surpass saves every 30 seconds. That's also, on the flip side, the bad news. So if you cut information out and you're kicked out, what happens is it's gone. So copy it and paste it. Okay, then delete it. Don't copy, as I said, that large amounts of information. When it comes to and format within Excel, don't format all your columns and all your rows because, again, the system doesn't handle it. Now, I'm not telling you this information to scare you. I've been an exam supervisor for over 5 years now. And we have shared this information, the candidates that follow it, it's also shared with you before you write the exam. We normally have very few problems. So I'm just letting you know because this is going to reduce your stress level. I know a lot of us use Alt-Tab function because it really isn't Word and Excel. That function doesn't work within Surpass. So again, you would get kicked out. So make sure when you're writing your cases at home that you're not using the Alt-Tab function. But remember, we can get you back in very quickly, so don't worry. What a really great tool is, now in Excel, there's only one tab that you can write your entire response in. There is some pre-populated information. So any financial information that is 10 lines or longer, there is going to be tabs where that information is there. It's accessible. You can't perform any calculations, but you can copy and paste that information into your one workable tab. So here is a picture of what that looks like. So an important reminder from the Board of Examiners. Data analysis is an important function of the CPA competency map. So the reason that they've given you that financial pre-populated information is so that you can perform some data analysis, so that you can do it in a comprehensive and effective manner. So let me give you a specific example. Maybe it's an audit and assurance question, and you are to identify some weaknesses in the data. So you could sort that data. You could copy that data, input it into your first tab, your only workable tab, so that you could sort it, identify what they are, and then provide recommendations to the user. So the day of the exam, what are some important stress management tips? Make sure that you rest, that you relax, you do something fun a few days before you write CFE. Reduce that level of stress. Make sure that you arrive early. Your area or province will tell you. If they tell you you need to be there 2 hours before, make sure that you're there 2 hours before. Find out where you're sitting, get your work area situated, sign in. Most of the time you can leave and then they'll tell you when you need to come back. Arrive early. Make sure that you're taking those slow, deep breaths when you're feeling overwhelmed. Don't focus on things that you can't control. Focus on what you need to do as you're sitting there and preparing and waiting to write that exam. And as you're writing that exam, reset. So in day 3, you're going to write anywhere between 3 to 4 cases. Reset between each case. It's almost like close that book before you open the next one. So don't think about what did I do well? Oh my goodness, I didn't know this piece and so on. Let it go, move forward, work on the next case. Stick to your recommended time. That is critical. And I have some great best practices to share with you when it comes to time management, when it comes to creating effective outlines, whether it be for day one case, for day two, or for day three. So those are all coming up in future webinars. Reset at the end of the day. So when you're done, don't sit back and contemplate, oh my, what did I do well? What didn't I do well? Let it go. Don't sit with your peers and talk about what did they do, because that just significantly increases your stress. Do something fun. Go out for a nice meal. Decompress. I want to share with you some common restricted items we see. And this again will help reduce your stress. These are items that you're not able to bring to your location when you write CFE. So no pens, no mechanical pencils. It's just the old-fashioned pencils. No, pencil sharpener. Your water bottle, we need to be able to see through it. No mouse pad. You want to make sure that you bring a layer of clothing, so in case it's a little cold, but make sure that there are no hoods, so no hoodies. So if you follow this, again, it reduces your stress. I've also provided you with some additional resources to help manage your anxiety. So if you find that you're in need of these resources, please come back and look at the recording because there's some great information here available to you. So this is your first CFE support webinar. This recording, you will find the recording. It will be available in D2L. So in the home page for Capstone 2, Introduction to Capstone 2 and CFE. The upcoming webinar, our first one after the stress management, and that's going to be a live webinar. So please register for it. That's understanding CFE. So I've kind of given you a little bit of hint talking about the different levels. For day one case, depending on which case you're writing, whether it's Viviana's or Neptune, that's going to be either April the 7th or the 8th. Only come to the one that you're going to be writing. Day two and the path to competent, that's going to be on April the 14th. And day three and time management, that is on April the 16th. So please make sure that you register for those. Come and attend if you can with the live presentations. We will have a Q&A. And if you aren't able to attend, the recordings will be available. So as you prepare for CFE, I wish you the best of luck and keep telling yourself you can do it. Take care, everyone. Talk to you soon.